happy Sunday afternoon, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Sunday afternoon edition of This Week with Riley King. Let's get started right now. And on this edition of This Week with Riley King, on the partisan divided with vaccinations, Arkansas governor tells George Stephanopoulos there shouldn't be a partisan divide. First of all, you overcome skepticism and mistrust by truth. Let's take a listen to that video right now.
Well, there shouldn't be a partisan.
You're a Republican. How do you explain this partisan divide on vaccinations?
Well, there shouldn't be a partisan divide, first of all, but clearly a conservative is more hesitant about government authority. That's just the nature of it. And so I think in southern states and some rural states, you have that more conservative approach, skepticism about government. And we just have to answer it just like we have all through history, that you overcome skepticism and mistrust by truth. You overcome resistance and obstinance with saying it's important for our community, it's important for the health of our state and nation. And so I think that's simply the nature of different views of government. We've got to overcome that mistrust because Republicans, Democrats, we all suffer the same consequence if the Delta variant hits us and we're not vaccinated.
You're a Republican. How do you explain this partisan divide?
Okay, and there you go on that video in that report. George Stephanopoulos presses Arkansas governor on apparent of COVID-19 surge. What can you do to turn this around? And here is what the governor said. We're working very hard to get to that population ages 30 to 54 and overcoming the hesitancy. Let's take a listen to that video right now.
Numbers going to hospital.
Your state appears to be in the grip of a third surge of the virus. 3 days in a row this week, over 1,000 new cases. Hospitalizations are rising. What can you do to turn this around?
Well, one of the things that you see from the data is that early on in the pandemic, the average age of hospitalizations was 64. That has dropped 10 years down to 54, and the reason is the elderly population got vaccinated. They're reducing the numbers going to hospital, but it is that age group between 30 and 54 that is becoming ill, that has not been vaccinated, not good vaccination rates, and so that hospitalization rate has increased. And so what do we do about it? We're working very hard to go to that population through the employers, through trusted advisors such as the clinics, making sure they have the information and overcoming the hesitancy or just the simply we're putting it off approach. I've started community conversations, going to cities. I'll be in 6 cities next week in Arkansas, simply talking about what are the concerns, what are the community ideas to how we can do this better in terms of increasing that population and their vaccination rate.
Okay, and there you go on that video. As Arkansas's governor points to the lack of full authorization for vaccines as part of why the state lags in vaccinations, Dr. Fauci says he does have a point, adding that really only a technical issue. These vaccines are going to get full approval. Let's take a listen to that video right now.
Data showing that one of the states with low vaccination rates is Arkansas. The Governor Asa Hutchinson is up next. His state is 44th now in the country, and he said that the lack of full authorization from the FDA is contributing to vaccine hesitancy. How do you respond to that, and how far do you think we are from full authorization?
I think the governor does have a point there. There are certainly some people who, when you use the terminology emergency use authorization, they kind of think it's a tenuous data showing that it works so that it's safe. That's not the case. In some emergency use authorization for other products, the amount of data just barely gets to show you that the benefit is definitely worth any risk. When you're dealing with the data that we have now, George, you're talking about hundreds of millions of people who've been vaccinated, and in every country, you see that the effectiveness and the safety of the vaccines are very high. So although it's understandable, quite understandable, that some people might say, well, we want to wait for the full approval, that's really only a technical issue. It's the FDA dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But there's no doubt in my mind that these vaccines are going to get full approval because of the extraordinary amount of positive data. But the governor is correct when he says that there are some people who are saying that, who understandably saying, no, I want to wait. What we're trying to do is get the information to them to say that the data are really overwhelming in the positive sense.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this Sunday edition of This Week with Riley King. Thank you for joining us for this Sunday edition of This Week with Riley King. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and see you back here next Sunday for another edition of This Week with Riley King. Goodbye, everyone.